Sorry, y'all. I was posting a Telegram. Or no, I'm sorry, Instagram. Something like an Instagram. Are we 5x5? We should be totally live here. It is a record-breaking day. We have never had 0% on the poll. And as I was remembering to write it down this morning, we had a 0%. So we just made history here, son. Welcome to Prepper Nation. I'm John, of course. Thank you for supporting the channel no matter how you do it, via the Coffee Club, Patreon, or just being here and hitting like and subscribe, blasting it out on social media, all that good stuff. Who's in the house? Pilgrim, I just seen you a while ago. How you doing? Shady's up in the house. Shady just put a new song on here on YouTube. And it's rocking. Robin's in the house. Force, what's up? Talon, good morning. Savage Lee, VR Lab Girl, now I want moon pies. Kevin Grip, Steph L, David Dyer, good morning. Beginner Ohio Homesteader, good morning. Joni, Nanette, Going Healed, Dome Seeker, good morning. Course moderators, thank you very much for being here. Misty, what's up? Go Beaverines. That's right. Twisted Pixies in the house, Captain Coral, Warhorse, and good morning. Mountain Dog, Windflower, Slee Stack, I'm on my third cup of coffee so I can read these names. Amelia, good morning. Ark Nanny, how are you doing? So, I'm going with the moniker this morning, Triple Threat. It's Tuesday, right? Triple Threat Tuesday. We're going to talk about three things, and I'm going to just jump in and out of chat as we talk about these things. We got to start with there's so many things to choose from, though, every single morning, but I got to start with Nikki Haley. Are there any Nikki Haley fans in the house? Y'all know who I'm talking about at least, right? Digna, good morning. Simply Tony, how are you doing? So Nikki Haley, who is running for president of the United States, but there's a nasty rumor afoot that she is actually positioning herself to become Trump's pick for VP. That Nikki Haley knows she has no chance, but she wants Trump to select her as vice president. I don't think he's going with Mike Pence again. I could be wrong on that. But Nikki be a rhino, Meemaw says, and more. So we're going to talk about that. She's actually, she's in with the WWII, in case anybody didn't know. If you're in the coffee club, I posted a little link over there earlier that goes to an article. She was selected as a young Indian leader in 2011, I think. She is a darling of the WWII. Hopefully y'all know what I say when I say WWII. It's a 3-letter organization. But she recently had a town hall in Iowa, and she was asked about Ukraine, which is where the poll comes from this morning. And I'm going to give you some direct quotes. They were asking her, how do you feel about the war in Ukraine? If you're president, or in her case, maybe vice president, where do you stand on the war in Ukraine? And again, keep in mind that she is a darling of the WWII. She's in pretty deep over there, as a matter of fact. She said, and I quote, "Best interests of America if Ukraine wins." That's kind of an odd statement, but it is what it is. To me, it's another region of the world, and I understand some people in chat are probably going to say, when the USSR broke up, just to give y'all a little rundown here, Ukraine had nukes. And the United States swooped in, and the United States government promised, we'll take care of you. We'll protect you, son. We just need you to get rid of the nukes. We didn't want another, power out here, rogue nation, if you will, with nukes. So we said, we didn't say it. The government said, hey, we'll swoop in and protect you. So I understand that side of the argument, but that was promises made by a president and administration. It had nothing to do with me or many of the other taxpayers. I'm not on the hook for that. That's the way I view it, at least. Another direct quote, should Ukraine fall, we're looking at world war. So in her eyes, Ukraine wins this war or we need World War III. That's the only other option. It's either or. And finally, another quote that she threw out was, it's a war we have to win. So I had to step back when I saw this town hall, and I said, wait a minute. So this lady, number one, she just admitted the United States is at war. be it a proxy war or whatever. She's admitting in the wide open, we're at war. It's a war we have to win. That's very important. Okay, this is not Ukraine versus Russia. She's saying the United States is at war. Globalists, what this also tells me, because again, she's in with the WWII, she knows the agenda very well, that globalists want either a Ukrainian victory completely overpowering Russia here, or they want World War III. For them, it is either or. So this isn't just Nikki Haley speaking off the cuff. She understands if she's put into this position, she's supposed to answer according to the agenda. That doesn't sound like de-escalation to me. Either you're going to run roughshod over Russia and put them in their place, and she said, and I'm paraphrasing on this, she said, send a signal to China and Russia, or we need to have World War III. We need to go ahead and fight it. Again, doesn't sound like de-escalation to me. Another direct quote, Kyiv needs weapons, lots of them. So she's making this push at her own town hall. She's making a push that we need to send more, not only aid, but specifically weapons of war to Ukraine. We need to continue this proxy war. She'll fund a war effort if she's president. That's the point I'm trying to make this morning. Or even if she's vice president, she's going to be, number one, she would be in Trump's ear, should he be elected, selected, whatever, saying, you know, we need to send stuff to Ukraine. Number two, Trump's not a spring chicken. So this lady would be in the same position Kamala Harris is in right now. Let's face it, if Biden gets reelected, Kamala Harris will be president of the United States. That's a fact. Because I don't think he's competent enough now, and I don't think they can hide it for much longer. But we also need to consider this with Donald Trump. And I know there are a lot of Trump fans in here, but his vice president, very, very important because he's up there in age as well. If he can't do the job, you can guarantee they're going to try and remove him from office. And whoever vice president is at that point in time is going to be the commander in chief. And she's telling you in the wide open, either Ukraine wins this proxy war with the U.S., the help of U.S. and its allies, or we're going to World War III. And she has no problem at her own town hall saying we're going to fund it. We need to send a lot more than we're sending right now. Bringing us to the poll this morning. How much longer should the U.S. support the war in Ukraine? I'm talking financially. I'm talking sending weapons of war. I'm talking about paying for their government officials that are retiring. We're paying pensions and things like that, okay? 96% of the live crowd when I went live this morning says it needs to end now. Getting back to the promise our government made to Ukraine versus should taxpayers be on the hook for that promise? Because those were elites making that promise, but they're using tax money to do it. And I just don't think that's fair. I think it's, we may be a little slanted over here in the live stream. We may be a little bit slanted in our views, but 96% of the people are saying we need to end it now. It is a money pit and we don't need to be involved. We just got out of Afghanistan. 0%, again, a record here at Prepper Nation until the 2024 elections. Supported up until that point. 4% as we went live says as long as it takes. Tie time. So we're going to jump into the chat now. Tie time. I put a lot of thought into this because I'm wearing a Jasper, Missouri shirt here from Roadhouse, son. Excellent movie that if they ever remake this movie and they woke it, I'm going to go loco. So I went with a Missouri tie. How fitting, right, Bama Jen? So what do y'all think before we move on here? Nikki Haley. What are your honest thoughts on Nikki Haley? What do you think she would do as a president, as a vice president, or your thoughts on Ukraine in general? Good morning somewhere in West Texas. How are you doing, ma'am? I know we finally got 0% Minute Man. We've been trying so hard over here. Double deuce, that's right, Matt Outdoorsman. Well, Bama Jen, I had to. Missouri and Missouri. No Nikki. Share Bear says no Nikki. We need out of the Who. The Who started, yeah. They did start those yesterday. We need out of all of these 3-letter umbrella groups that are trying to control the world. The Who is just one of them. We really do. We need out. Leading us to bad things. No to Nikki Haley. I think she's bad news. No. If she is a weef puppet, no way. So I don't know that she's a weef puppet, but she is in the weef. Absolutely. Just blasted that intel over to the coffee club, and it's right there. She's 11th or 12th on that list of young Indian leaders that are going to make a difference in terms of the climate and stuff like that. Not voting for her. I don't think, I could be wrong. I don't think she's going to be the pick. I do think the way it stands, Trump will be the Republican nominee. But I have heard that she might be the VP. So she is not very popular in chat. I thought we had a lot of Nikki Haley fans, to be honest with you. She was great at the UN, but I don't want to see her as president or vice president. Yeah, whoever we see as Trump's vice president, I mean, we're running a risk. He's more coherent than Joe Biden. I mean, but he is up there in age, so we don't know what that's going to look like 4 years from now. Haley is a rhino. They are all WWII graduates. That's an interesting ticket. I believe Scott, isn't he the one that blasted the ladies on The View the other morning? I didn't watch The View. I happened to see it in the news. I don't watch The View. It is. Thank you for bringing that up. Please remember this is the anniversary of DDay. Please remember that. Thank you very much for bringing that up. I totally forgot to put it right there. It was supposed to be at the top of the show this morning. They were real ones. Imagine, before we move on, just imagine being out on the deck, hearing that speech. You know, it's raining. You're hearing that speech. Imagine the level of nerves that those guys had to been going through, knowing they were getting ready to hit the beaches and, you know, being told, you know, history is going to remember this battle forever. You're liberating the world, basically. Man, I can't imagine. So moving on to number 2. Some good news. If you're a conservative, we need some good news, right? Bud Light and Target, they in serious trouble, son. Serious trouble financially. Target's stocks have lost $15 billion with a B dollars in the last few weeks. Ever since they decided to put the Pride stuff up front and throw it in the back, now they don't know what to do. They have lost so much money in stocks, and people will say, well, they haven't actually lost that money, but that they have. Stockholders are losing a fortune right now. They're trying to sell off Target stocks. They can't sell them. JP Morgan has actually downgraded Target's stocks. They're approaching a point where they're going to be considered penny stocks or something like that. They're going into Radio Shack and Blockbusterville at the rate they're going right now. And it's happened so fast. Target's net worth as a company has fallen off of a cliff. They've lost about 1/5 of their entire value as a company in just a few weeks. So whatever you're doing, I don't really shop at Target, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it. But Bud Light, woo! I'm smiling. I ain't gonna deny it here, son. I'm smiling. This makes me happy that I was wrong so far. Bud Light is actually facing long-term damage beyond just stocks. All right. So in September, what generally happens with your stores, your Walmarts, your Targets, if they're still around in September, your Winn-Dixies, your Piggly Wigglies, your Costco's, they go through and they reevaluate. They take sales, they look at shelf space. If something is not selling, they shrink the shelf space down. You have less space to put your product. Okay, this happens historically in September. At the rate Bud Light is going right now, they're going to have a very small shelf presence, if any at all. So right now, when you go into a store, and I pay attention now, I don't even drink, and I pay attention to the beer aisle when we're in stores. So Bud Light right now, they have like a huge shelf space. Nobody's buying the crap. And what's going to happen in September is a lot of these stores are going to push them down to maybe one spot on the shelf, or maybe not even that, maybe just over in the corner stacked up somewhere. That is going to lead to long-term damage, and they are totally in panic mode right now because they thought, I'll admit it, they thought, Anheuser-Busch thought the same thing I thought. Few weeks, people are going to forget, they're going to come back, and people have not stopped boycotting this company. You are about to see a desperate company slinging everything that they can patriotic against the wall. Everything. You're going to see them pandering to patriots. You're going to see them pandering to the military, to the flag, to country music fans, anything that they can do. They're not above at this point trying to go to a church and film. They are trying to bring conservatives back to Bud Light because these people have no idea what to do. They are losing their backsides, and it is long-term damage. But the thing with Bud Light, from now until September, if you are boycotting them, please do not stop. Ratchet down a little bit harder. Get the message out. Keep blasting this out on social media. The picture with the dude that looks like he's not a dude or trying to be something other than a dude, smiling with the beard, they want to eliminate that from the internet. They're going to flood social media with patriotic images. They want people to forget. Do not let people forget, because if we get to September and this boycott is still hot and heavy, this sets a precedent for things to come. All right? Other companies are looking at this and they're waiting to see what happens. If we get to September and Bud Light shrinks on the shelf from here to here, you're going to see companies running from the Rainbow Mafia because they cannot afford to lose this kind of money. They're watching to see if conservatives come back. Will the free beer get them back? Will the $15 mail-in rebate get them back? You know, will the American flag themed cans get them back? They don't know what to do. They really don't. They can't use, they've relied in the past on the NFL. They can't even do that because a lot of conservatives are also boycotting the NFL. So they can't reach the crowd there. They have no idea what to do. They're running country music ads. This is not working. They're pandering to the United States patriotism. This is not working. They have no clue as to what to do. And this company is going to go from here into oblivion in a year if this boycott stays the way it is. And I love it. To me, this is great news. There are plenty of beer companies out there. CoverGirl, yeah, CoverGirl's a bad one. There are a lot of bad companies. A lot of companies that pretend to care about social justice and they pander to certain groups. But they're all watching Bud Light. Again, this is going to set the precedent. If conservatives don't come back and Bud Light goes into oblivion like dust in the wind, these companies are going to stop supporting the Rainbow Mafia. They really are. But if conservatives go back, you're sending the message that we're just going to boycott you for a little while and we'll come back. Please do not go back if you're boycotting them. Honestly, America boycotting large corporations is a good thing. It absolutely is. because a lot of beer drinkers have turned to like the smaller independent breweries and things like this. And again, not a huge beer drinker, but they're supporting smaller businesses, not major corporations. And you can make this argument, look, if other companies do this, people are going to start supporting small town America again. Stuff like this, not necessarily in beer, but other things. And companies are terrified. It's like a horror movie. They're watching this whole Bud Light thing and they're like, oh my God, what are we supposed to do? Because money drives everything. You know, y'all know what the ESG scores are, right? They want to have a good ESG score and they want to look like they care about things they don't really care about. They don't want to be painted in a bad light. They don't want people to think bad of them, right? They're all about diversity, but they want to make money and they don't know what to do right now. You know, and the more you boycott Bud Light, the more you force these companies to be companies and not political machines, in my opinion. What do y'all think? Yes. Christine says support local businesses now. Now is the time. Now is the time. Support your mom and pop stores. I know some of you are still boycotting Tractor Supply. Maybe if you're buying hardware at a local place, you're helping that place out a lot more than you realize. And, you know, it's a win-win because you're inflicting financial damage to a company that doesn't really care, doesn't really have the values you have. And you're helping companies, smaller businesses and things that are run by people like you that probably do have the same values as you. It's a win-win, the way I look at it. Chick-fil-A is less busy here since the DEI announcement. I'm going to get to them eventually. I'm going to see where they go with it. But again, they've got to be looking at Bud Light thinking, how far do we take it at this point? Do we just say we support and love everybody and we serve good food? Or are we just going to smack people in the face with it? You know what I'm saying? And that's what Target did. That's what Bud Light did. And they're paying a heavy price. It's one thing to support all communities and have a little bit of everything in a Target. It's another thing to walk in, be just slapped across the face with it as soon as you walk in, see that they're pandering and that they're targeting kids in a certain way. To me, that's way overboard. You know what I mean? And that's taking a side. You chose your side, and now you're bleeding money. Same thing with Bud Light. They brought this guy. They brought him on as a brand ambassador. This didn't just randomly happen. They didn't select his name out of a fishbowl. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were pandering to a certain crowd, and whoops, they screwed up. Yeah, I noticed Chevy is advertising heavily in red, white, and blue trucks. Remember the commercials like a rock and stuff like that when they played on patriotism? You're going to see a lot more of that in commercials on TV moving forward if Bud Light loses their rear end completely. Yeah, Adidas is a dumpster fire anyway. They have been since they got rid of Kanye West, right? They had his stuff and he was making them a lot of money. And then again, they took a position and they booted him out of the company, and now they're dumpster fire. I mean, they were never at the top anyway. Bullcrap. Mom and pop stores almost to all pay the lowest wages, least benefits, and quality of good stuff. Well, I mean, I would disagree, and here's why I hide behind. Mom and pop stores are going to vary greatly. You may have some that pay low wages for sure, but I can point to retail stores. Dollar General doesn't pay much, you know, and they're a national corporation. As far as the quality of the stuff offered, what I notice, and this is just in my area, stuff typically costs a little more at the mom and pop stores, but it's quality made versus Chinese crap that you're going to buy, you know, at the big box stores. But that's just where I'm at. Critical thinker. Hey, John, we should make our own rating system for patriotism, American values, and good business sense. Those lists are probably already online. If y'all know of one, maybe drop it in chat. I'm sure those websites exist that kind of rate them. I know the liberal ones are out there because I remember at one time posting one and saying all of these companies are scumbags. The ones with the high liberal ratings, just boycott them. But let me jump on number 3 here. I call this one California Dreaming. California Dreaming. Because if you live in California and you want decent insurance on anything at this point, son, you are dreaming. State Farm and Allstate are the 2 big companies that have pulled out so far. Plenty of smaller insurance companies are getting out. State Farm and Allstate will not be the last 2 that leave. Insurance companies are headed for the hills. They cannot get out of California fast enough. Now, as they're running, and what it is certain people have policies still through State Farm and Allstate. They have to honor those policies, but they're not going to renew them, and they've already cut off all new policies. They're not insuring people in California. Now, they're saying it's because of wildfires and the soaring costs to rebuild things. The soaring cost is a real thing. When we got insurance this past time, we swapped companies, and the first thing they wanted to know was, do you want it? I don't know what they called it, but they appraised the house, and then they said, do you want that amount of money insured or the amount of money that it would cost to totally rebuild everything brand new, because the premiums are much higher that way. So the soaring cost is a real thing. The wildfires, though, I mean, that's kind of a stretch. Scientists are saying climate change is to blame. Not kidding. Climate change is why these insurance companies are heading out of California. But I disagree with that. I'm not a scientist here, just an FYI, in case y'all didn't figure that out by now. I think it's because of bad liberal policies. Yeah, replacement cost, Slee Stack. It comes down to, do you want what the house is worth when we appraised it, or if we have to build it brand new in 10 years or something? I think it's bad liberal policies in California. California right now has a $31.5 billion shortfall on their budget. They don't have enough money as a state to operate, to pay police officers, to pave roads, to maintain parks, to maintain government buildings and things like this. And the only way to combat that is to what? If you're in California, you have to raise taxes. And this is how they've been combating that year in and year out. Well, we'll just raise taxes. People that have money, companies that have money, we're going to tax them harder. This has led to wealth leaving California. People with money that are tired of paying taxes, very high taxes in California, they're moving. Companies that are tired of paying high taxes are moving out of California. Everybody with wealth, including the insurance companies, they're bolting from California. And honestly, California is facing economic collapse at some point. We talk about economic collapse here in the United States, but I think we're going to see it in California first. That's going to be the first domino to fall. New York State is in pretty bad shape, but I think they have more wealth than California has right now. They don't know what to do. And I believe this is the biggest reason that insurance companies are running, because there's no money to be made in California. I know it's a weird analogy, but it's like Ukraine for insurance companies. It's just a money pit. They're having to spend so much money to replace things. There's so many regulations put into place. Everything's got to be electric. It just doesn't make sense to do business in California anymore. On top of this, the cost of living in California is I didn't know this, 50% higher than the national average. That's nuts to me. California is a beautiful state. I know some of you live in California. It's a beautiful state, but I think you'll agree that it has changed dramatically over the past several decades. And again, I would point to liberal leadership. California, for me, is a perfect example of socialism. It's like a socialist experiment over in California. And socialism sounds great when you write it down on paper. Hey, everybody gets this. Everybody gets free benefits. Everybody, we're going to live clean. We're going to do this. Sounds great on paper, but it never works long term, ever. Every socialist country out there right now is struggling with a budget deficit that they don't know how to fix. They'll legalize weed. They'll raise taxes. They're throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping something sticks. Or they're defunct countries. They no longer around because socialism doesn't work. It's the perfect example of socialism. And commercials, thank you for bringing that up. So yesterday we didn't catch a full strike, but the content was not suitable for advertisers. Which just means, hey, Johnson, you work for free. Stop talking about what you were talking about yesterday. But they ran ads yesterday, so somebody made some money. But I said, hey, I'll just double down and do it again today. California is becoming a state, beautiful as it is, filled with tent cities and camper cities. Apparently, the campers, a lot of them are not even really functional anymore. They're just parked. They're dilapidated. It's a huge problem. Most of the people that are stuck in California don't have the money to move, and they're wholly dependent on the state, and the state is broke. So we get to see economic collapse in California. And as you watch it in California, just understand that's what it's going to look like for most of the United States of America. Again, in my opinion. Wayfair commercial, oh, they're no good. Don't buy from Wayfair. Do not buy from Wayfair, please. Well, at least they're showing different commercials. And again, if I get a message saying this is not suitable for advertisers, well, Google just got paid then. So I apologize in advance for that. But now, that's the three things. That's a triple threat. We can talk about whatever y'all want to talk about there, chat. NYC is turning into a camp city. It is, but California, I think they're a little bit worse in terms of homeless population, per capita and all this stuff. And in California, it's more noticeable because it's along beaches and everything. I mean, these people are camped out. They've got tent cities on beaches and stuff. And people just don't know. The tax-paying citizens don't know what to do about it. They walk outside. They see tent cities everywhere. The cities don't know how to clean it up. They don't know where they're going to put these people. They don't have the funding to put them in proper housing and stuff. So we get to see it in real time. Well, I'll know more about that tomorrow. We're going to have the exclusive live stream tomorrow. I'd meant to watch the documentary already. I haven't gotten around to it. It's about chemtrails because I've been watching Gunsmoke. I discovered it was free on Pluto, and it has ruined me. Oh, thank you, Gerald, but you don't need to do that. I was going to live stream either way, as long as I don't catch a strike. If I catch a strike, I'm not allowed to live stream, but I don't care about the ad revenue so much. I'm just letting y'all know when you see a commercial, old John probably ain't profiting from it. It's Google. So just know that up front. It's a West Coast thing, Lori. Seattle is terrible. Homeless tents all over. And it's happening across the United States, but when you look at it, it seems to be a city issue, and it seems to be concentrated heavily in liberal-run cities, right? So, to me, it is a socialism issue. These people have spent their wealth on stupid crap that never, ever works. They try it over and over and over. It just doesn't work. And then they have a big mess on their hands. Captain Coral, I did. There's a dam. I think it's in Russian-controlled Ukraine. It blew up. And I think it's already flooded one town entirely. They had to evacuate it. Russia is saying that Ukraine actually did this, or Ukrainian allies. Ukraine is saying Russia did this. Of course, it's all propaganda. We don't know who did it. It very well could have been Russia, but now they have a major disaster on their hands because the water's just pouring out everywhere. Um, and infrastructure, to be honest with you, infrastructure in a time of war, it's a target. It's going to be targeted during a time of war. They had to know this was going to happen. House in my neighborhood for sale. They rejected my offer in November and now asking less than I offered, but the payment would be double now. So pissed. That's weird. I don't know why they would have rejected it in the first place then, unless they thought they could get a lot more out of it. Surviving with Terry, man, I love that show. Absolutely love it. The only thing with Pluto is you get the woke ads, just like you do here on Google, but it runs 24/7. Love it. Bama Jen can probably give you the name of it's on YouTube. She can probably give you the name. I don't have the name right in front of me. It's free on YouTube. She was the one that suggested it. Get out of the Democrat states. Come out of her, my people. But for some people, it's easier said than done. There are reasons that certain people are anchored to states or anchored to specific cities. I mean, I try and look at both sides of it. Yeah, from a prepping standpoint, really makes no sense to live in San Francisco. Just throwing San Francisco out there, for example. But if your entire family lives in San Francisco or your elderly parents, and that's been the only home that you've ever known, you really don't want to leave. You know what I mean? Um, and maybe you have a decent paying job, and a lot of people, I guess, are just hoping and wishing it would get better, and hoping and wishing is not going to fix it. And the leadership there is not going to fix it. Boston, I didn't know about that one. Isn't smelling that great these days. I hate the city now. Boston's a pretty city. You never know, Clay. You never know with these people. Do you think the fake UFO scare is coming soon? Because I do. It was all over Fox News last night. When they run a narrative, an official narrative, the best way to tell, I think anyway, is to watch Alex Jones because he knows what's coming apparently all the time. But watch your mainstream media. If you begin to see UFO scares running on Fox and it's hitting CNN and it's hitting BBC and it's hitting Sky News, then that's an official narrative that they're trying to throw out there on everybody and get everybody's attention. White collar prepping. How about Congress admitting the safety of whistleblowers cannot be guaranteed? Isn't that something? Congress is saying the FBI, there's an informant. I think the informant is, if I'm not mistaken, is against the Biden family. And a congresswoman said, this informant doesn't believe that they can be protected. The FBI is saying, we don't know if we can protect this person if their identity's thrown out there. That's pretty scary. When the FBI is admitting we don't know if we can protect them. Yeah, most mainstream media is a distraction, but they want you looking there for a specific reason. Maybe it's so they can do something over here. Maybe they're going to use the the UFO scare for something else. Everybody's talking about Festus, man. I like Matt Dillon. Come on. Oh, come on now. Who's that, Lord Eagle? Guess who's about to have their dams blown up? Hopefully, the United States is looking at ours like, let's up the protection here a little bit on these things. Um, Allo Farms. I want out of Maine, but currently can't do so due to several reasons. Yeah, and some people do have legitimate reasons for having to stay where they're at. And so I do understand that. And all you can do is prep to the best of your ability in that situation, you know. And you have to understand the situation again. Um, if you're in downtown Boston, Boston's a pretty busy place, right? Somebody had mentioned Boston, and you live in an apartment, you have to prep totally different than you would if you lived on a homestead in Arizona, for example. I saw that she took off to Russia. Now they said she defected to Russia, like she's unpatriotic for going. I don't really know the whole story behind there. I know the stuff she's accused former presidents of and stuff, but you know, it you're going to get a totally different story from Russian media than you would mainstream media, and the truth's probably somewhere in the middle. I do believe UFOs. It's crazy that we're sitting here talking about UFOs. I can remember several years ago thinking, man, that's just something you don't talk about on a channel because nobody's going to buy it. You know, nobody's going to put any credibility behind it. I do believe UFOs are going to be used against us as a false flag. There's hardly anything else they can scare us with. Yeah. There'd be little green men coming down and they'll have a new variant of the C-19 to boot. Yeah, the FBI whistleblower against the Biden crime family. I remember reading something about it yesterday. I mean, there's just so much going on. It's hard to keep up with everything. Now, a couple of countries are talking about culling hundreds of thousands of cows and admitting this outright for climate change. And I almost went with that topic this morning. I'm like, well, there's just so much to choose from here. And I do think it's a total distraction. The question is, as somebody had just said, does it lead to a false flag, or is it just a distraction? Hey, look here while we do stuff over here, that sort of thing. They're really good at that too. Did you see where the news said the grid will go down and they're already blaming? Yeah, it hasn't happened yet, but when it happens, it's going to be the right wing. It has to be, right? I mean, it ain't even happened yet. We believe this might happen, and we believe it. We already know who's responsible. Well, stop it from happening then. If you already got proof that they're responsible, you kidding me? Um, Throwing this out there randomly, we are out of. I just posted this to Instagram. We're out of 5 gallon buckets here at the Ponderosa. We're literally using all of them for plants, mostly tomatoes, but we had some peppers to put in still. If you have an Ollie's nearby, because the 5 gallon buckets have went up substantially in price. Ollie's has a pretty sturdy crabbing bucket. Not kidding, for like a beach day or something, but it's sturdy plastic. So we're using a few of those for peppers because that's where we're at. Apparently. Oh man. Um, that's how you do it. Good job, Sarah. They want our chickens dead, so I just bought more. Why not? You know, they don't want you eating meat, so yeah, buy more. Um, I'm very lucky. I get free. Yeah, very lucky food grade 5 gallon buckets from work. I mean, when I say they went up, I think with a lid, they're around $8, which is twice as much as they were prior to the pandemic. And I just didn't want to go and buy a bunch when we can get these for $2. I mean, they're not 5 gallon buckets, but they're a little bit shorter, but they're just as wide and they work just fine. Take a nail, you pop a few holes in the bottom, and you plant. So if anybody has Instagram, yeah, I've got a sad picture over there of a couple of them we got out. Rule King is totally out of 5 gallon buckets too, and something I've noticed is lids. Lids for these buckets are hard to find right now. I don't know why that is. Um, I mean, I can see them being out of buckets and having extra lids because you have to buy the lids separately. But for whatever reason, we'll go into a store and they'll have 100 buckets and they'll have 20 lids. Like, what's going on with that? Well, it's a good problem to have, right, Milton? We have too many chickens. My wife has a problem. I trust that before I do KFC, man. 458 for the bucket and 198 for the lids at Wally World right now. Ours, I think, is a little more expensive than that, but not much. Because when we buy the buckets, no matter what we're going to use them for, we try and buy a lid with them too, in case we end up using them for something else. Absolutely. We were talking about DDay earlier, and what that had to feel like. Anytime I think about DDay, a lot of people think about actually hitting the beach and what all that was. A lot of people on DDay died because they were packed too heavy, and the only way they could get out of the boats when they were hitting were jump over the side and try and swim, and they couldn't get their packs off. But I always think about the people standing on the deck. You're going into it. Like you can hear the explosions up here, and you're going into it, and you're listening to a speech from the president saying that it's one of the most infamous battles in history, and you're changing history with this battle one way or the other, and you're going to free or liberate the world. And also, I do, when I think about D-Day and the people that fought in World War II, there are not many of them left, but I think about what they have to feel like and what they think when they see the United States in 2023, to survive that, only to have this, to have guys on, cans of Bud Light dressed up as something else. It's ridiculous. Uh, why buy sandbags when you could just buy extra contractor bags? Just a thought. That's a fair comment. I mean, sandbags are relatively cheap anyway. Um, Either or, if they're good contractor bags, they'll hold up. Hard. Teresa, we this was our master plan for a while because they were cheap at Firehouse Subs. They sell these things, and then they donate, to first responders. We bought some of these. The red pickle buckets, and for 2 years we tried everything we could inside these buckets to get the smell out, and it still didn't go away. And then finally, the kids had their water guns out one summer, and we filled those up with water, and we're like, have at it. And their clothes still smell like pickles a couple of years later. I'm sorry to hear that. Omaha Beach was nasty for sure. The glider crews that parachuted in and died. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff that goes into D-Day and the preparation for D-Day and Patton's Ghost Army and all this stuff. If you're bored one day and you're into history, look that up if you haven't already. Where we had inflatable tanks and they would move them around every day, and I it's just interesting to me. But I'm a history nerd. I can't imagine. I knew the first doctor to hit Normandy Beach. He had some gruesome stories. I can't imagine being a medic during a time like that. Leave them out in the sun. It gets rid of the pickle smell. Where were you at 3 or 4 years ago? We could have saved some money. I don't think they came with lids though when we bought them, but still, they're cheap. I think they were $4 when we bought them. I agree with that, Tim. I really do. I think the elites got it pegged down. I think that's another reason why Nikki Haley, who is in with the WWII, understands the agenda is. I mean, it's World War III. You know, that's going to play into it. That's not going to be the only thing that depopulates, but it'll do an outstanding job of getting us useless eaters cooled down a little bit because that's how they think of us. Casey Littleow, good morning. How are you? There's nothing wrong with it. There are plenty of books on it, but I enjoy reading all the books on World War II, but I do try and get as close to that time period as I can because I think the information's more accurate. I can go and I can read a book from the early 50s and then read about the same subject, a book that's written 5 years ago. Two totally different stories, seems like. You would think, right? You would think, Bertie. History is important. You would think that they would be pushing this stuff in schools, but they're not. They're not pushing this kind of stuff in schools. They're pushing everything else. You know, you gotta be nice. Take your seat. Don't speak up against the agenda. That sort of thing. Don't learn cursive. Apparently. All right, folks. Do we have anything else before we shut her down this morning? Trying to scroll back through the chat. I'm not ignoring y'all. I promise. The chat just flies over here. They're erasing history from school and rewriting it. Yeah, both are taking place. When they do study history in school, which is not always, um, you have to understand that the textbooks or the virtual textbooks now, who's writing these things? You know, people that graduate from very, very, very liberal universities are writing these books. And so you're getting a very slanted version of the truth. I mean, there's probably a little truth in them, you know, dates maybe. He seems to be a lot. And some people think that he's controlled opposition. I don't know one way or the other, but he seems to know what he's talking about. I can understand why they put him in the corner and try to silence him. Um, I'll have to look into that. I didn't know that. I know that a couple of countries are pushing the universal basic income. You can call it whatever you want to. A check for existing, whatever, social benefits. Um, but they're pushing it, and we're going to see our larger cities first, and then maybe the rest of the nation kind of gear itself toward universal basic income. That's all part of the plan. Um, I'll try and do that, Paradise Acres. I got to run out for a little while, and when I get back home, I'll try and set that up for y'all on the backup channel. Homeschool if you can. There you go. I'm going to leave y'all with that quote. Homeschool if you can, if they continue to allow it. My only concern with homeschool is if a large amount of population begins to homeschool, they're going to they'll step in and either regulate it or they'll try and stop you from doing it. They're not going to allow it to be widespread. You know, the stereotype right now, I think, is if you homeschool, your kids aren't going to be taught well. And, you know, y'all know the stereotype, but the truth is, I think the total opposite. You know, kids grow up, they have values, they actually study history and things like this. and they're a lot safer. They're safer from wokeism. I guess that's a word. But there you go. That's an excellent thought for the morning. God bless each and every one of you. And thank you for supporting the channel. See you tomorrow.